My name's Adrian Agius, and I'm a fourth year commerce and law student at UNSW. I major in information systems, and I guess I've been passionate about this whole technology and law area from, the first week of law school when I realised it's not really a thing in law school. At the moment, I wear 5 hats, I guess you could say. I'm a data analyst at iCourts, who previously were doing e-discovery and e-courts on the Royal Commission into institutional responses to child sexual abuse. I'm a techno-legal at Gilbert and Tobin, which is a role I invented. And I guess...
Are they paying you?
Sorry?
Are they paying you?
Yes. And I guess if you want to look at it in an easy to understand way, it's a tech-savvy paralegal, but I like to think it's a lot more than that. I am the creator of an entity / a brand called Hack Justice, which recently ran a hackathon at UNSW. I'm a researcher at the Cyberspace Law and Policy Centre, which is, I guess, where my law interest lies in internet policy, cybercrime, etc. And I run my own techno-legal publication, which is really my soapbox that voices all my musings and all my experiences from all those roles. I guess as a law student who also studies information systems, mind you, if I had the option, I would study information systems and law straight, not an information systems major in commerce. But that's not really an option because I guess there's a view that all technology falls within the realms of computer science, which isn't true. And particularly for a law degree, I think understanding information, how to manipulate it, how to research effectively, is something that's better covered in information systems, which is mainly the reason I chose the degree. I don't think we do enough technology, and obviously my passion lies with technology, so that's what I'm going to speak to. It's not compulsory within any of our core subjects at UNSW. There are 2 electives that I know of, both of which I'm doing technology law and the interning at the Cyberspace Law Centre. But other than that, within our core courses that all law students have to undertake, the presence of technology is minuscule, if not nothing. And I guess working in industry and working with tech in industry, I can see that there is room to introduce, even on a small scale in the first instance, issues of technology or where technology finds itself in different practice areas. I speak to contracts and smart contracts, blockchain in banking, e-discovery in resolving civil disputes. The list goes on. But I think in any case, that would be a first step and a first port of call if things like regulation of law schools is an issue, because those are things that are present in industry now and are relevant pieces of information for law students to know. I guess that's my intro. Go on.
Do I take it that you're an advocate for technology being compulsory in a law course?
Compulsory to the extent that it supplements your legal knowledge. I think we learn too much content. The reality is there's more information now about the law than there ever has been before, more ways to access it. So why are we teaching content? In any case, you'd probably be learning a less proportion of content than you've previously learnt before, given all the changes in the industry. Teach us the skills that are relevant to that industry. That may be technology, it may be other skills about project management. But teach it in a way that it's adaptable, because the reality is that the law is changing and it's changing quite quickly with all these new technology developments and ways of practicing law. I don't think it's necessary to have a compulsory law technology course, but to have it feathered in throughout your degree would be advantageous.
You seem, with all your extracurricular activities, you probably have an insight into what the world is outside the law, but can you express a view on how well the universities are preparing students for the future, alerting them to the job prospects that exist or don't exist out there?
To be honest, there's not much of it. And I don't know, I speak from my own personal experience, and I'm involved in a lot of technology and law, but I go searching for it. It's not a matter of if I was just there as a law student, just doing my law degree and trying to get through it to eventually move on into the industry. I wouldn't really have a real understanding of what's going on in the industry. You start to get it when you get to that whole clerkship stage and you see students asking me questions, or how do you see technology impacting law, to, fill in a questionnaire for some top tier firm that's decided to catch on to the innovation bandwagon. But the thing about it is, and I speak from experience because, and they've been supportive at UNSW in the sense that David Dixon and now George have been quite supportive in what I've had to say about technology and law. But I spoke at a roundtable at UNSW earlier this year on technology and law, and I had my own ideas about where the law school should go with technology and law. And look, I wouldn't say that the reception was the best reception. It was an interesting room to speak to, academics, listening to a fourth year law student tell them how to teach their law course. I don't think they appreciate it very much. But it opened the dialogue, and that's why I went and did the hackathon. It was a student-led initiative, and then the law school came to support it later on. So it's interesting. Sometimes you just have to take the plunge and do it and prove that that's the way to go. So it'll be interesting to have the follow-up discussions from the hackathon, and from that we even got student perspective about what we see the future of law looking like. We've passed that on to the law school for their to review. So
what do you see the future of law looking like?
You're going to see lawyers acting in more of an advisory role rather than traditional lawyers. There will be less lawyers, and I do think that we are producing too many law graduates if you look at it from the perspective that a law graduate needs to go into legal practice. But prior to the hackathon, I filmed a video with Justice Kirby for the students about his perspective on technology in the law, and he had an interesting perspective in that he was a bit cynical of my perspective, which was, I think we will have jobs for law students who want to take an interest in technology and what's changing in the legal profession, because the reality is that technology is creating new roles that didn't exist before. Say my techno-legal role, legal technology analyst, data analyst, the list goes on. And those roles didn't exist previously. So I do think that with the appropriate skill shift and training within law schools, law students can be better equipped to deal with the challenges, create their own jobs, their new legal markets. And I think even if not, law degrees are exceptionally useful. So you might just see lawyers working within the Big Four who are making a massive move into the legal industry, that now they're even offering clerkships. So there will be a role for a lawyer. How many lawyers there actually are, or traditional lawyers as a job title, I suspect it would be less than it is now.
Can I ask you a personal question? Do you want to practice law when you get your degree?
Not at all. I mean, look, I'm at that stage in fourth year where, everyone's applying for clerkships. I just had no interest in it whatsoever, because I feel like that takes you down a path where you don't get to explore the things with technology. I mean, I'm quite lucky where I am working at GT and with all my other roles where I get to do things I enjoy. It might be the case, and this is not something that you would see potentially in like a traditional role, where I might spend 50% of the day at GT just exploring my own ideas about what things we could build, and then 50% on projects we're working on. And that room to move is something you probably don't get in an industry where the more time you work, the more money you make, which doesn't make sense, because in the technology industry, it's the complete opposite. You build a product and then you scale it and you try to make as much money as you can from as little input as you can put in. So, I mean, as long as we have that fixed fees and that, as long as we have that per unit billing, and that is a presence in your day-to-day legal work, no, I don't ever want to be a lawyer. But that might change.
I guess one of the things that I find interesting is the idea that we should be including more around technology. But the question is, how do you find the space for that? And I take it from what you said, you'd reduce the sort of the content that exists there. Mm-hmm. So in some ways, you learn how to, to effectively how to find law or how to use law without necessarily learning the particulars of a particular area of law, for instance. Mm-hmm. Is it true then that your view would be that we can fit technology into the current curriculum without losing some of the other areas?
Yeah, correct. And I think the biggest barrier to being able to do that is the actual expertise of the lecturers who are lecturing the courses. There is an inherent reluctance to change because, well, I have to learn a new technology, and I view technology in the legal profession as the great leveler. Like, you can sit there with a partner and show them how to bold a font, and they're just amazed, and you're like, well, I was doing this since like kindergarten. But and I think that reluctance is something that needs to shift. I don't think law students expect lecturers to be amazing at technology, but to have an understanding. And look, there were suggestions that maybe it costs too much to retrain lecturers and we don't have the capacity to do so, but my argument would be that in your capacity as a professional in that particular area of law, it's probably necessary as part of understanding that area of law that you understand the technology that goes with it. Like if you're a contracts law lecturer and you don't understand smart contracts, well, potentially there's a skills gap there and you just need to learn. It's a constant process of learning. I don't profess to know everything about technology, but I'm not the type of person who, if I have a new thing to learn, I'm going to turn around and say, no, I'm not going to do that because it's not my area of expertise. And that's sort of what we have to get law students thinking, and what next.
Can I just talk to you about smart contracts? One of your earlier comments that I wrote down was that you think the law is changing. I'd test you on that. I don't think the law itself is changing. I think the practice of law is changing. And you made another comment that there was too much legal content. I presumed you said there was too much content. I interpreted that as too much legal content being taught at universities. There's a debate going on at the moment as to whether a smart contract is a legally enforceable contract. So it's great if you know how to build a smart contract, but it's not so great if your client comes to you and wants you to defend a position either for or against a contract being a smart contract, being a legally enforceable contract. Mm-hmm. So I'd put it to you, Adrian, if I may, that I certainly hear what you're saying about the need for more education about technology, but I don't think you can give away the legal content, because myself as a client, I don't want to hire a lawyer and have to pay for them to learn the law from the law firm. So I wonder whether perhaps I should take away that your evidence is that the law degree should become a bigger thing, in the sense that there should be more technology courses in a law degree. Would that be a fair takeaway from what you're saying, or have I misunderstood?
I mean, look, I get that point, it's valid, but when I sit there for the first 2 weeks of my law degree, i.e. 4 classes learning about the history of contracts, I argue that that's probably not necessary. You could have 1 class on technology in there. In which case you're still learning the skills because they come later, and you still learn the content about how to enforce a contract, etc. But we're talking about dedicating no time in that whole course versus dedicating a bit of time to actually grapple the issues. I don't think that the law degree should be a bigger course. In truth, I think that the 5 years it takes to complete a dual degree law course is far too long, particularly because I think the skills you learn are quite adaptable. And compared to, say, the stuff you would learn in computing or something like that, the law degree I find is quite easy. It's very content driven. You can get away in an exam by just dumping what you know and still getting away with a pass. I mean, stuff like that, if we want to make it a truly difficult degree or something that tests the actual critical thinking of lawyers, maybe we have to change the way we examine the content, or even, I don't know, change the content itself. But at the moment, I think that the way in which we're going about teaching it is creating lawyers who are ultimately inflexible and unable to adapt to changes. And sure, we might get this technology education further down the track, but there's a whole generation of lawyers who have sort of missed that, and that's the next generation who are coming through. So,
I wanted to ask a question around the hackathon. Mm-hmm. And the question, I guess, is What sort of skills do you think the participants in that hackathon got? So by taking part in that, what did they learn?
Okay, so it was interesting. My preliminary findings of the hackathon on day one was this, that if you give a law student limited information and ask them to solve a problem, they can't do it. If you give it to a technology student, they can. So what we did was we got the Refugee Advice Casework Service to present a problem that they were facing. And we essentially said, here's a problem in legal terms. Go away and build something. They're working in teams of technology students and law students. Build something that solves their problem, right? New experience for many students. The first day I had a list of 70 or so questions from law students about we need this information, we need that information. And look, I went away and I got maybe 25% of the questions answered for them, but I wasn't going to give them all the information because the role of the exercise was to think outside what you normally think. And that's the thing. We get taught so much content that we expect a lot of content to be able to solve problems versus if we're given this 2-page scenario, how do we go about solving the issues? And I think once we stopped feeding them the information, they started to turn over their ideas, and by the end of it, we had solutions that were brilliant. I mean, now we're building the solution for racks and we have so many ideas that they want to implement. We're like, just calm down, we'll get you the core product first and then we'll give you all these features. But I think just being able to think differently and work cross-disciplinary, because we had that and that's what made it useful. And you don't get a lot of that in law school. You rely on people studying a secondary degree that's of use, so to make it unique, I guess.
I think Professor Hinchins mentions something about this, that there needed to be more of an overlap between the two degree courses that one does in a combined degree course. Is there any overlap between your law degree and your other degree that has been relevant, or are they like two ships passing in the night?
You can make them relevant.
But are they, at the moment? Are they being taught in a way that makes them both relevant?
No, not taught in a way, but if you come with, say, an information systems school of thought to your law degree, then yeah, you can interpret it in a way that makes sense in an information system setting. But in terms of making them relate to each other, no, not really.
So that subject you're studying, technological law, or what was it that you were already studying in the course?
Yeah, so I'm doing technology law and then
Right.
I'm doing a internship, which is a subject at UNSW, which is with the Cyberspace Law and Policy Centre.
So that's very legal driven rather than technological
Yeah,
driven.
so that's more around internet law and cybercrime and all
Right.
that sort of stuff, which is an interest of mine, but I think the reality is that there's a greater calling to assist the legal practice transition with technology than to maybe practice in the area. But you can potentially do both, I guess.
Is that technology law subject being taught in respect of your law degree, or?
Yes, correct.
Your law degree, okay.
It's an optional one, I think
It's
you
an
said,
elective,
right? Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yep.